In the crystalline observation chamber of the Galactic Science Council's most advanced research station, first observer Zyratel's tentacles writhed in growing alarm. The quantum containment readings on her holographic displays were becoming increasingly unstable, pulsing an angry red that reflected off her iridescent scales. "Status report," she demanded, her translator converting her subtle chemical signatures into standard galactic common. "Critical deterioration in sectors 7 through 13, senior researcher Kex responded, his crystalline form flickering with anxiety. "The quantum anomaly is growing at an exponential rate. Our containment systems are failing faster than the automatics can compensate." The Nexus research station hung in space like a delicate snowflake, its crystalline spires housing the most advanced scientific minds in the galaxy. For 3 cycles, they had been studying a naturally occurring quantum anomaly, believing their superior technology made them immune to its chaotic effects. Now that same anomaly threatened to tear the station apart. "Time until complete containment failure?" Zyratel asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. 17 hours at current deterioration rates," Kex replied. "But first observer, the rate keeps accelerating. Our models didn't account for this level of quantum instability." Zyratel's scales shifted to a deep blue of concern. The station housed over 3,000 researchers and support staff from 27 different species. Their containment technology was supposed to be foolproof, their automated systems the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Yet here they were, watching those same systems fail one by one. "Send the emergency signal," she ordered. "Priority 1 distress call to all nearby council vessels." The message went out, bouncing between quantum relay stations across this sector of space. But as the responses started coming in, Zyratel felt her scales pale to an almost translucent white. "The nearest council rescue fleet is 3 days away," Communications Officer Vex announced, her crystalline form pulsing with distress. "The 7th Scientific Squadron could arrive in just under 4 days. Everything else is too far." She stopped suddenly, her crystals flickering with surprise. "First observer, I'm detecting a response from an unexpected vector." "Show me," Zyratel commanded. The main holographic display shifted, showing a cluster of ships approaching from the direction of the Perseus arm. They were unlike anything Zyratel had ever seen in her centuries of service. Crude-looking vessels that seemed cobbled together from mismatched parts, their hulls bearing the scars of what appeared to be numerous repairs. "Classification?" she asked, studying the strange fleet. Vex hesitated, running the scan again. "They're human vessels, first observer. Civilian ships, mostly, but they're broadcasting an emergency response signal." Humans, the galaxy's newest spacefaring species, barely a decade into their membership in the Galactic Council. Zyratel had read reports about them. Of course, a fascinating if primitive species that had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel, despite still using combustion engines in some of their surface vehicles. "They can't be serious," Kex said, his crystalline form expressing disbelief through chaotic light patterns. "Those ships look like they're held together with prayer and good intentions. Our quantum containment systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. What could they possibly?" He was interrupted by an incoming transmission. The holographic display shifted, showing a human female wearing what appeared to be a heavily modified environment suit. Her dark skin was marked with lines that Zyratel had learned indicated age in humans, and her black hair was streaked with gray. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Emergency Response Vessel Tsunami," she said, her voice calm and professional despite the situation. "We picked up your distress call and are approaching with a full rescue fleet, requesting permission to assist and immediate briefing on your situation." Zyratel felt her scales shift through several colors of uncertainty. The human ships were clearly not military vessels. Most of them appeared to be converted cargo haulers, and what her database identified as oil rig support ships, whatever those were, but they were also the only help within range. "Captain Chen," she began carefully, I appreciate your offer, but this is a highly sophisticated research station dealing with extremely dangerous quantum phenomena. Our containment systems are failing, and the technical expertise required. First observer, Chen interrupted politely but firmly. Before I took this command, I spent 30 years leading deep-sea rescue operations on Earth. Quantum physics might be new to us, but dealing with containment failures under impossible conditions, that's something humans have been doing since before we mastered electricity. The captain's image was replaced by a series of rapid-fire visuals. Humans working in what appeared to be underwater structures, teams responding to something called a nuclear reactor breach, and rescue operations in environments that seemed to defy survival. Every ship in this fleet has a crew of experienced disaster response specialists. Chen continued as her image reappeared. We might not understand your quantum technology, but we understand crisis management, containment procedures, and most importantly, how to improvise when high-tech solutions fail. Another screen lit up, showing more human vessels dropping out of FTL. These ships were even stranger, massive floating platforms that Xyratel's database identified as converted deep-sea oil rigs, modified for space travel. Those are our heavy response units, Chen explained. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior. They're equipped with reinforced containment chambers originally designed to handle underwater oil well blowouts. We've modified them to handle spatial anomalies. Not as elegant as your quantum systems, but sometimes brute force and redundancy work better than elegance. Xyratel found herself fascinated despite her concern. The human ships were ugly, yes, but there was something about their robust construction that spoke of hard-won experience. They moved with precision that belied their awkward appearance, taking up formation around the station with practiced ease. First observer, Kex interrupted urgently. Containment Field 7 just collapsed. Cascade failure is accelerating. Xyratel made her decision. Their sophisticated technology was failing them. Perhaps it was time to try something different. Something tested not in computer simulations, but in the harsh reality of a young species' fight to master their own world. Permission granted, Captain Chen, she said. Sending you our status data now. And thank you. Save the thanks for after we've gotten everyone to safety. Chen replied with what Xyratel recognized as a human smile. Sanani actual out. As the transmission ended, Xyratel watched the human fleet begin their rescue operations. Their ships might be ugly, their methods unorthodox, but there was something reassuring about their confident approach to the crisis. Sometimes, she reflected, experience counted for more than technological sophistication. The humans were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about the value of getting your hands dirty in the name of saving lives. The Sanani's bridge was a study in organized chaos. Holographic displays showed the quantum containment fields failing across the research station, but Captain Chen was focused on a much older piece of equipment, a weather depth gauge modified for spatial distortions. Just like the Mariana Trench rescue, she muttered, watching the readings climb. Rodriguez, what do your pressure mappings show? Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, a veteran of deep-sea salvage operations, manipulated a three-dimensional display of the station. The quantum disruption is creating pressure waves similar to what we saw during the Pacific Shelf incident. Different cause, same effect. We've got compression zones building up around the containment barriers. The alien station's crystalline architecture sparkled against the void of space, its elegant spires now showing visible distortions as the quantum anomaly strained against its failing containment. Around it, the human rescue fleet had taken up positions that would have seemed random to outside observers, but made perfect sense to anyone familiar with deep-water rescue operations. Deepwater Horizon. Status report, Chen called out. In position, Captain, came the response from the massive converted oil rig. Containment chambers are prepped. We've modified the pressure locks based on the Challenger Deep protocols. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. The aliens might not understand why humans had brought what they saw as primitive industrial equipment to a quantum physics crisis, but sometimes the old solutions were the best ones. First observer Xyratel. Chen addressed the alien leader, whose holographic image showed scales shifting through various shades of anxiety. We're ready to begin implementation of our containment strategy. However, I need you to do something that might seem counterintuitive. What do you require, Captain? The alien's translator conveyed her uncertainty. Shut down your remaining quantum containment fields. The request caused an immediate stir among the alien researchers visible in the background. Their crystalline forms flickered with what Chen had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. Captain, Kex interrupted, his crystalline structure practically strobing with distress. Those fields are the only thing holding the anomaly in check. If we deactivate them, those fields are failing because they're trying to impose order on chaos, Chen explained, pulling up a simulation on her display. We learned this lesson the hard way in deep-sea operations. Sometimes trying to contain pressure makes it worse. You have to work with it, redirect it. She gestured to where the Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior had positioned themselves. Those ships aren't just platforms, they're pressure relief valves. We've modified their containment chambers to create a controlled channel for the quantum distortions. But your containment fields are fighting us, trying to maintain a perfect seal that's already failing. Rodriguez added her own data to the display. Look at these pressure patterns. They're almost identical to what we saw during underwater volcano containment operations. Different type of energy, same basic principles of fluid dynamics. Fluid dynamics. Xyratel's scales shifted to a color Chen hadn't seen before. But this is a quantum anomaly, not a liquid. Energy is energy, Chen replied with a shrug. Whether it's superheated water from a thermal vent or quantum fluctuations from a spatial anomaly, it follows similar patterns when under pressure. We've been dealing with containing and redirecting dangerous energy flows since we first started exploring our ocean depths. She watched understanding slowly spread across the alien leader's features. The Galactic Council species had achieved spaceflight through careful, methodical advancement of their technology. Humans had done it differently. They'd learned to survive in every hostile environment that their world could throw at them, then taken those hard-won lessons to the stars. Chief Harrison, Chen called out, show them the containment sim. The main display lit up with a detailed simulation showing how the human fleet would handle the quantum energy. The converted oil rigs would act as primary containment points, their reinforced chambers designed to handle pressures that would crush most spacecraft. The support vessels, positioned in a pattern developed for handling underwater avalanches, would create a controlled flow path for the energy. Those modifications to your ships, Kex observed, his crystal structure pulsing with what might have been reluctant admiration, they're based on deep ocean equipment. When you're 5 miles under the ocean dealing with pressures that can crush titanium like paper, you learn to build things tough, Harrison replied. We've been handling extreme containment situations since before we had computers to calculate the math for us. Sometimes the old ways work best. Chen watched the alien researchers studying the simulation, their initial skepticism giving way to cautious hope as they recognized the underlying principles at work. It might not be elegant, it might not be high-tech, but it was based on centuries of human experience in handling the impossible. Time to containment failure, she asked. 14 minutes, Kex reported, his crystalline form steady now, focused on the task at hand. First observer, Chen said, turning back to Xyratel, we need your decision. We can do this, but only if you trust us. Only if you're willing to let go of the idea that more advanced technology is always the answer. The alien leader was silent for a long moment, her scales shifting through various colors as she processed the situation. Finally, they settled on a deep, determined blue. Deactivate the quantum containment fields, she ordered. Captain Chen, the station is in your hands. As the alien technology powered down, and the quantum anomaly began to surge free, Chen felt the familiar calm of a rescue operation settling over her. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, using techniques developed for an entirely different environment. But that was what humans did best. They adapted, they improvised, And above all, they drew on their long history of facing down the impossible to save lives. "All ships, commence containment operations," she ordered. "Let's show the galaxy how Earth handles a crisis." The quantum anomaly erupted like an underwater volcano, sending waves of distorted spacetime crashing against the human fleet's formation. Inside the tsunami's command center, Captain Chen watched the energy readings spike across her displays, but her expression remained calm. She'd seen worse during the Pacific Ring of Fire incidents. "Deepwater horizon, status of primary containment," she called out, eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of quantum energy that now resembled nothing so much as a deep-sea current. "Holding steady, Captain," came the response from Commander Jack Torres. "Energy flow is following the predicted patterns. These old pressure chambers are proving their worth again." Through the main viewport, Chen could see the massive converted oil rigs containment systems at work. What had once held back the crushing pressures of the ocean depths now channeled quantum forces that the aliens' advanced technology couldn't contain. The reinforced chambers glowed with an eerie light as they absorbed and redirected the energy. "Ocean Warrior, report," Chen commanded, switching her attention to the second primary containment vessel. "Secondary containment stable," replied Captain Sarah Martinez. "But we're seeing some unusual fluctuations in the eastern quadrant. Reminds me of those rogue waves we dealt with off the coast of Alaska." Chen nodded, remembering those missions. Nature had a way of teaching humans that no plan survived first contact with reality. "Rodriguez, analyze those fluctuations. See if we can adapt our Gulf Stream protocols to handle them." Lieutenant Rodriguez was already working her console, her fingers dancing across controls that merged modern holographic interfaces with old-school depth gauges and pressure monitors. "Got it, Captain. The quantum energy is behaving like a thermocline layer. We're seeing distinct boundaries where the forces shift dramatically." On the research station's command deck, First Observer Zeratel watched in fascination as the human fleet adjusted their formation. Ships moved with practiced precision, taking up new positions that seemed to anticipate the anomaly's behavior. "Incredible," Kex murmured, his crystalline form pulsing with academic interest. "They're treating quantum forces like ocean currents." "Because that's exactly what they are." Chen's voice came through the comm system. "Energy is energy, whether it's water under pressure or space-time under strain. The principles of fluid dynamics still apply. You just have to adjust your scale and expectations." A sudden surge in the anomaly sent ripples of distorted space washing over the fleet. The alien observers tensed, but the human ships rode out the wave with practiced ease, their formation flexing and adapting like seaweed in a tide. "Picking up secondary pressure buildups in sectors 3 and 7, Rodriguez reported. "The quantum energy is starting to cascade, just like we predicted." Chen's expression tightened slightly. This was the critical moment. They'd seen similar patterns in underwater rescues when multiple pressure points threatened to create a catastrophic chain reaction. "Deploy the buffer ships." Standard North Sea storm formation. A group of smaller vessels, converted deep-sea rescue craft, moved into position. Their hulls were scarred from countless missions in Earth's most dangerous waters, but they moved with precision that spoke of crews who knew exactly what they were doing. "Buffer ships in position," reported Commander Wei from the lead vessel. "Beginning pressure redistribution sequence." The smaller ships activated modified versions of the same systems they'd once used to stabilize underwater structures during storms. Waves of counterpressure pulsed outward, creating safe channels for the quantum energy to flow through. "First Observer," Chen called out to Zeratel, "we're going to need access to your station's structural integrity field controls. We need to synchronize them with our containment efforts." The alien leader's scales shifted through shades of uncertainty. "Captain, those controls are incredibly complex. Our engineers spend years learning to." "With respect, First Observer," Chen interrupted gently, "we don't need to understand the theory. We just need to know which way the current flows. Lieutenant Rodriguez here has been handling deep-sea structural integrity fields since before we had computers to calculate the math. Rodriguez didn't look up from her console as she added, "It's all about feeling the pressure points, understanding where the stress wants to go naturally. Fighting it never works. You have to guide it, work with it." Zyratel made a decision, transferring control to your station now. As the structural integrity field controls appeared on Rodriguez's display, she began integrating them into the containment operation with the same instinctive skill that had once saved underwater habitats from collapse. The quantum energies, guided by human experience and alien technology working in concert, began to flow more smoothly through the containment network. Energy levels stabilizing. Kex reported, his crystalline form glowing with what might have been excitement. The containment pattern is holding. But Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. She'd seen too many rescue operations turn bad in their final moments. "Maintain formation," she ordered. "This isn't over yet. Nature's always got one more surprise up her sleeve." As if in response to her words, a new alert sounded across the fleet. The quantum anomaly was changing, evolving in ways that even the alien scientists' models hadn't predicted. The human rescue fleet was about to face its greatest test and prove that sometimes the best solutions came not from advanced technology, but from generations of hard-won experience in facing down the impossible. The quantum anomaly's transformation sent shockwaves through the containment network. On the Tsunami's bridge, alarms blared as energy patterns shifted in ways that defied both alien science and human experience. Captain Chen watched as the carefully orchestrated rescue operation began to unravel. "Multiple containment breaches detected," Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The anomaly's structure it's like nothing we've seen before. It's not just moving like a current anymore. It's starting to behave like a storm system." Through the viewport, Chen could see the quantum energy forming into spiral patterns that reminded her of hurricane formations. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior, their containment chambers already at capacity, struggled to maintain their hold on the forces they were channeling. Deepwater Horizon reporting critical pressure levels. Commander Torres called out, his voice tense. The containment chambers weren't designed for this kind of recursive energy pattern. We're looking at potential structural failure in 15 minutes. On the research station, first observer Zyratel's scales had turned a pale, frightened white. "This is impossible," she transmitted. "The anomaly is creating feedback loops within itself. Our models never predicted this level of self-organization." Chen's mind raced, drawing on decades of experience. She'd seen something similar once, during a rescue operation in the Arctic, when shifting ice flows had created unexpected pressure patterns that threatened to crush a research submarine. "Rodriguez," she called out suddenly, "bring up the data from the Novaya Zemlya incident." Her lieutenant's eyes lit up with understanding as she pulled the old mission files. "The ice flow convergence. Captain, you're not suggesting." "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." Chen opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships prepare to implement Arctic Protocol 7. Buffer ships realigned to create a divergence pattern. We're going to split this storm." "Captain," Kex interrupted, his crystalline form pulsing with confusion, "what are you planning?" "This is a quantum anomaly, not an ice flow." "Pattern recognition." "Researcher Kex," Chen replied, already directing her fleet into new positions. "Back on Earth, we discovered that certain natural phenomena repeat themselves across different scales and mediums. What works for ice can work for water. What works for water can work for air. And sometimes, just sometimes, what works in the ocean can work in space." She pulled up a simplified display of their new strategy. "In the Arctic, we learned that you can't always contain pressure. Sometimes you have to split it, create artificial channels for it to dissipate through. The principle should work here, even if the physics are different." "Should work." Zyratel's scales shifted to a new shade of anxiety. "Welcome to human rescue operations, first observer," Chen said with a grim smile. "Sometimes you have to trust your gut and decades of experience over theoretical models. The fleet began to move into their new formation. The buffer ships, originally positioned to contain the quantum energy, now arranged themselves in a wedge pattern. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior, their containment chambers straining, prepared to release their held energy in a controlled burst. "This is insane," one of the alien researchers muttered over the open channel. "They're going to try to split a quantum storm using techniques designed for frozen water. Wouldn't be the craziest thing we've done," Rodriguez commented, her fingers flying over her controls as she coordinated the fleet's movements. "You should have seen us adapt deep-sea mining techniques for asteroid extraction." Chen watched the quantum storm continue to build, its spiral arms now resembling a massive hurricane made of distorted spacetime. They'd have one shot at this. If their timing was off, if their understanding of the energy patterns was wrong, they'd lose both the station and the fleet. "All ships in position," Rodriguez reported. "Waiting for your order, Captain." Chen took a deep breath, feeling the familiar calm of a critical moment settle over her. This was what humans did best, taking what they knew and applying it in ways no one had ever imagined before. "Execute Arctic Protocol 7, she commanded. "Deepwater Horizon, Ocean Warrior, release containment on my mark." The quantum storm raged around them, its energy patterns growing more complex by the second. But Chen wasn't watching the storm anymore. She was watching the subtle indicators she'd learned to read over decades of rescue operations. The slight shifts in pressure, the almost imperceptible changes in energy flow that told you when the moment was right. 3, 2, 1, mark. The containment ships released their held energy in carefully calculated bursts. The buffer ships' deflection fields engaged, creating a network of channeled pathways. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like ice breaking apart under controlled demolition, the quantum storm began to split. "Energy dispersion patterns holding," Rodriguez called out, excitement creeping into her voice. "The storm is breaking up exactly like the ice flows did." Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched their improvised solution take effect. The quantum energy, denied its chance to form a catastrophic feedback loop, dispersed along the channels they'd created. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't theoretically sound, but it was working. "Remarkable," Kex transmitted, his crystalline form pulsing with what might have been awe. "You took a solution designed for frozen water and applied it to quantum mechanics. And it worked." "That's the thing about human engineering," Chen replied, watching the last of the quantum storm dissipate. "We learned long ago that the universe often uses the same patterns over and over. Once you understand the pattern, the medium doesn't matter as much as you'd think." But even as the immediate crisis began to fade, Chen's expression remained focused. They still had to stabilize the station, evacuate non-essential personnel, and ensure the anomaly wouldn't reform. The day was far from over, and if there was one thing human rescue workers knew, it was that you never celebrated until everyone was safe at home. 2 days after the quantum storm's dissipation, Captain Chen stood in the research station's crystalline observation chamber, watching her fleet conduct final stability checks. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior had taken up protective positions around the weakened sections of the station, their modified containment systems now helping to reinforce the structure until permanent repairs could be made. "Your ships look different now," First Observer Zuratel noted, her scales shifting through thoughtful shades of blue and green. "When you first arrived, I saw only crude vessels that seemed out of place among the stars. Now I see the wisdom in their design." Chen smiled, running her hand along a worn depth gauge she'd insisted on installing in her environment suit. "That's humanity in a nutshell, First Observer. We may not have the most elegant solutions, but we build things to last. Every scar, every patch, every modification tells a story of lessons learned the hard way." The station's main holographic display showed the aftermath of their improvised rescue operation. The quantum anomaly had been successfully dispersed, its energy spread out across a vast area of space where it could harmlessly dissipate. More importantly, all 3,000 researchers and staff members were safe. The Galactic Science Council has requested a full report on your methods, Kex announced, approaching with his crystalline form glowing with academic excitement. They're particularly interested in how you adapted oceanic rescue techniques for quantum phenomena. I'm not sure they'll find much use for our methods, Chen replied honestly. We didn't solve this crisis because we understood the quantum mechanics involved. We solved it because we've spent centuries learning how to handle the unexpected. That's precisely what interests them, Zyratel interjected. Our species pursued technological advancement through careful, methodical research. We developed solutions for specific problems, always building upon established theoretical frameworks. But humans, Kex continued, his crystals pulsing with revelation, you develop your technology by confronting natural disasters, by surviving in hostile environments, by facing challenges that couldn't wait for theoretical understanding. Rodriguez, who had joined them in the observation chamber, laughed. You should see some of our early deep-sea rescue equipment. Half of it was invented on the spot during actual emergencies. When you're 5 miles underwater and something goes wrong, you can't wait for peer-reviewed research. The station's displays shifted to show the human fleet's rescue operations from multiple angles. The aliens had recorded everything, from the initial containment efforts to the final dispersal of the quantum storm. Watching it now, even Chen had to admit it looked impressive. The way the ships moved in coordinated patterns developed over centuries of ocean rescues, the seamless adaptation of deep-sea technology to space-based problems. We've received word from the Council, Zyratel announced, her scales shifting to formal patterns. They're establishing a new division within the Emergency Response Department, focused on integrating human rescue techniques with our existing protocols. They want us to teach you, Chen asked, surprised. They want us to learn from each other, Kex corrected. Your methods may seem unorthodox to us, but they've proven something vital, that sometimes the oldest solutions, born from direct experience rather than theoretical advancement, are the most reliable. An alert sounded, and Rodriguez checked her Modify console. Final structural integrity checks are complete, Captain. The station is stable, and the anomaly's remnants are continuing to dissipate as predicted. Chen nodded, feeling the familiar satisfaction of a successful rescue operation. It wasn't about the recognition or the accolades. It was about saving lives, about proving that humanity's hard-won experience had value even in an age of advanced technology. There's an old saying among Earth's rescue workers, she said, turning to Zyratel and Kex. The sea is the best teacher. Everything we know about handling crisis situations, about adapting and improvising, we learned from facing down the most powerful force on our planet. And now you've brought those lessons to the stars, Zyratel observed, her scales showing patterns of deep respect. We had to, Chen replied simply. Space is just another ocean, bigger, darker, but governed by the same fundamental truth we learned in Earth's waters. Respect the environment, understand its patterns, and never assume your technology makes you immune to its power. As if to emphasize her point, the tsunami's scared hull caught the light of a distant star, its battle-worn surface telling the story of countless rescue operations across 2 different mediums. The supposedly primitive vessel now stood as a symbol of humanity's unique approach to crisis management, practical, adaptable, and born from generations of hard-won experience. Captain, Zyratel said formally, the Council has one more request. They would like Earth's rescue fleets to establish permanent bases in key sectors throughout governed space. Your perspective could prove invaluable in future crises. Chen shared a knowing look with Rodriguez. They'd come to help with a single emergency and ended up changing how an entire galaxy thought about crisis response. Not bad for a bunch of converted deep-sea rescue workers. Tell the Council we accept, she replied. But remind them, we do things our way. Sometimes that means getting our hands dirty. Sometimes it means improvising solutions that don't look pretty but get the job done. After what we've witnessed here, Kex said, his crystalline form glowing with certainty. "I don't think anyone will question your methods again." As Chen looked out at her fleet, still maintaining their protective formation around the station, she smiled. Humanity had brought more than just ships and technology to the stars. They'd brought generations of experience in facing down the impossible, in finding ways to survive and save others when pure technology wasn't enough. The galaxy might have superior technology, but humans had something equally valuable: the wisdom earned through centuries of learning to survive Earth's harshest environments. And now, those hard-won lessons would help protect life throughout the cosmos.